everyone, my name is Ng Xingyun with 25004399. I'm from Tutorial 2 Group 4. Today our group is going to present about Chapter 12, Understanding Leadership. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our group members. These are our group members. And here we have the others 5 lovely group members. Let us discuss about question 1. Define leader and leadership and discuss why managers should be leaders. A leader is someone who can influence others and who has managerial authority. Leadership is a process of leading a group and influencing that group to achieve its goals. It involves setting a goal, communication ability with others, enhancing commitment, and fostering an environment that people can perform well. Managers should be leaders because leading is one of the 4 management functions. Traditionally, managerial activity includes 4 main functions, which is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Managers should be leaders because leading is included in 4 key functions. Leading is built directly into framework. Managers are expected not only to manage process, but also to engage and guide people. This is because leadership enhances in other management functions. Leading support the other 3 functions, such as planning, which is the leaders help him to understand clearly the planning to achieve the goal. And the second one is organizing. Leaders select the most effectiveness, communicate channel to build commitment among team members. And the last one is controlling. Leaders comparing the result with the past experiences and giving feedback for improvement. In summary, managers should be leaders because leading is not optional. It is the essential of the management function. It completes the managerial cycle, which is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling to form an effective pathway for team to achieve organizational goals. That's all for me. I'll pass the floor to the next person.
Now, let us look into question 2. Based on the behavioral theory of leadership, how does the behavior of one leader differ from that of other leaders? To start off, what is the behavioral theory of leadership? There are theories that isolate behaviors that differentiate effective leaders from ineffective leaders. According to this theory, leadership behaviors have a dual nature, namely task-oriented and people-oriented. The way a leader balances between these 2 dimensions is ultimately what differentiates their leadership styles and effectiveness. Let's look into how the behavioral theory of leadership explains leadership differences. For task-oriented leadership, the core focus is on structure, goals, and efficiency. Research from the University of Iowa frames this as an autocratic style, where methods and decisions are dictated and centralized. The Ohio State, meanwhile, refers to it as an initiating structure, emphasizing organized work and clearly defined roles. Meanwhile, the University of Michigan describes it as production-oriented leadership, emphasizing the technical and task-related aspects of a job. Finally, these ideas can be summarized in the managerial grid as concern for production, measured on a scale of 1 to 9, with 1 being the lowest and 9 being the highest. In direct contrast, people-oriented leadership prioritizes relationships, morale, and participation. The University of Iowa associates this with democratic or laissez-faire styles that value employee input and autonomy. The Ohio State studies label this as consideration, where leaders show care for employees' ideas and feelings. The University of Michigan refers to this as employee-oriented leadership, emphasizing employee welfare and team dynamics. On the managerial grid, these can be measured as concern for people using the same 1 to 9 scale. In conclusion, the behavioral theory of leadership clearly demonstrates how leaders differ based on how they balance between task-oriented and people-oriented behaviors. Task-oriented leaderships focus on goals, deadlines, and performance metrics, with clearly structured roles and responsibilities that promote efficiency and productivity in an organization. In contrast, People-oriented leadership prioritizes employee well-being and job satisfaction by encouraging participation, collaboration, and strong interpersonal relationships. In line with this theory, a leader's emphasis on tasks and people shapes their leadership style, decision-making, and overall organizational dynamics. However, effective leadership is not about choosing one style over the other. It's about adapting behaviors based on the situation. Ultimately, effective leadership requires a healthy balance of both these approaches to achieve high performance while also supporting and motivating team members. Now, let us move on to question 3. Leaders are born, not made. I personally disagree with this statement. Firstly, I believe that leadership skills such as strategic thinking, communication, and decision-making can be developed over time through proper mentoring and training programs. For example, initiatives including the ASEAN Youth Leadership Conference by our Youth and Sports Ministry and the annual Youth Leadership Academy organized by McKinsey Malaysia exist precisely to encourage the grooming and development of leadership capabilities in our young Malaysians. Secondly, experience in encountering real-world challenges and navigating setbacks and operating under pressures allow individuals to learn from mistakes and develop resilience. These experiences enable them to build confidence, judgment, and wisdom, which are crucial leadership skills that are not inborn but need to be developed over time. Additionally, the situational leadership theory argues that effective leadership varies based on varying contexts and environments. For example, different situations such as a crisis, a creative project, or ordinary day-to-day tasks all require different leadership styles and approaches. Hence, success depends on one's ability to adapt based on the present environment rather than the inherited traits of a born leader. Similarly, the behavioral theory of leadership emphasizes that leadership stems from learnable behaviors, namely task-oriented and people-oriented leadership styles. According to this theory, effective leadership depends on the approaches and choices made by leaders, rather than who they are at birth. However, it is also important to acknowledge common counter-arguments, such as the great man theory and trait theory, which argue that leadership stems from innate personality traits within an individual from birth. However, these theories overlook the impact of development, experience, and situational factors. They also fail to explain why individuals often improve in their leadership capabilities over time, or why leadership effectiveness varies across different contexts. As a conclusion, while some natural personality traits may provide an initial advantage in one's leadership capabilities, they are insufficient on their own. Effective leadership is primarily developed and cultivated through proper training, experiences, and situational demands. Hence, leaders are not simply born, they are made.
Hi everyone, my name is Sofia Goeling and my metric number is 25005562. So today I will be talking about two of the most important questions of the theory of leadership. We may begin with question 4. So a leader's effectiveness depends on their followers' ability. Which theory claims this and why? So the theory that directly upholds this idea is the leader-member exchange theory, or LMX theory. In the most absolute way, LMX theory proposes that the effectiveness of leadership is not totally related to the qualities or action of the former, but the relationship between the leader and the followers is good. So, what is the practical use of this? The leader does not treat all his or her followers equally. They rather create a personalized one-on-one relationship, which can largely be classified into two categories. One, the in-group. These are the high-ability followers that are trusted more, supported more, and have access to the leader. And the second, the out-group. These relations are more formalities and less attention and influence are given. This then means that the performance of the of a leader is a variable of followers. So the performance of the leader is pegged on the capacity and commitment of the member in the in-group. When there is no one to delegate and trust, the performance of the team is minimal and the leader cannot influence it. In this case, contingency-based approach would be the most appropriate. And then to question 5, do most managers in real life use a contingency approach to increase their relationship effectiveness? I believe yes, it is mostly used, at least by my opinion, by the most successful managers on the institution basis. So, what is the contingency approach? Put simply, it makes us aware of the fact that there is no optimal leadership style. The secret of effectiveness is one over which you adapt your style to the situation. The major factors that are taken into consideration affecting this match are the preparedness and ability of the follower, the structure of the task, and the official status authority of the leader, and the last one is the long working hours and culture. It goes without saying that there was need to change the order of the Lexus commercial. This is the moment to discover the reason why managers adopt this strategy and why it is not always followed to the letter. The intuitive rationales why managers use it, because they are flexible, detecting and delegating duties and roles to new employees and experts respectively. They use it in solving problems, and this depends on the type of team and the task based on the problem, which is the team preparedness and the environment. And the modern educational process is concentrated on such flexibility in comparison to a unique model that fits all people. So the causes of it not always being systematic is because the majority of them would completely tend to lean towards a particular style, and this sentiment overrides what is required in a scenario. They tend to get into the rut at the expense of analyzing when praised in time. And there can be lack of formal training on contingency models, whereby application can be not uniform. So for the last part, the key takeaway. So what then is the unifying factor? The followers are required in leadership, which is proof according to LMX theory, and the content according to contingency approach. The only actual manner to be efficient is to have the capacity to adjust to individuals and situation, and not stick to a style of management that is most effective. That's the end of the question 5, so I will pass to the next member to the next part.
So now, I will be discussing about the case application 1, Success Tutor at General Electric. I will conclude a 10-point summary for that. The first point is about the fundamental trust issue. The core problem FIFA faced was the complete loss of trust due to a series of scandals and corruption allegations. This crisis necessitated a major overhaul of the organization's governance structure to restore faith among the stakeholders. The second point is about the high-stakes business. Football is a major global business, exemplified by the UK Premiership alone generating billions in revenue, making FIFA's governance critical. The immense financial flows mean that the mismanagement or corruption at the top has global economic consequences. The third point is about the World Cup bidding controversy. The process for selecting Russia in 2018 and Qatar in 2022 as the World Cup host was questioned due to the allegations of collusions and schemes to trade votes. These controversial choices suggested that the World Cup selection process was neither fair nor transparent, disappointing bidding countries that spend millions. And the fourth point is about the internal investigation failures. FIFA employed American attorney Michael J. Garcia to investigate the bids, and he compiled a comprehensive report. Garcia's 350 pages document detailed the corruption issues but was ultimately suppressed by FIFA. The fifth point is about the lack of transparency. FIFA's own ethics committee refused to publish Garcia's full 350 pages report, instead issuing a short summary which cast doubts and ultimately led to the Garcia's resignation, claiming facts were misrepresented. The decision confirmed suspicion that FIFA was actively attempting to conceal the truth about the bidding process. And the sixth point is about the US authorities' intervention. The situation reached a culmination in 2015 when US federal authorities carried out dawn raids and arrested 7 officials at the FIFA annual meeting in Zurich. This dramatic, high-profile action signaled the end of the FIFA's self-governance of the corruption problem. Number 7. Scale of corruption. In total, 14 people were detained over corruption allegedly, involving bribes exceeding 150 million over 24 years. The extensive timeline and massive monetary value revealed the deep-rooted, systemic nature of the corruption within the organization. Number 8. Blatter's downfall. Sepp Blatter was re-elected president but resigned 4 days later. Swiss prosecutors opened proceedings against him for financial irregularities, including a disloyal payment to Michael Platini. Blatter and Platini were effectively forced out of the football management following the criminal investigations and also the ethical probes. Number 9. Bans and succession. The Ethics Committee banned both Blatter and Platini from all football activity for 8 years, leading to the appointment of the Gianni Infantino as his successor in 2016. The simultaneous banning of the president and his likely replacement created a power vacuum that necessitated immediate radical change. And the last point is about the recovery focus. New FIFA under the President Infantino immediately focused on the passing comprehensive reforms centered on accountability and transparency to repair the organization's tarnished reputation and preside over a new era. Infantino's primary challenge became proving to the world that the new FIFA was genuinely committed to the ethical governance and transparency. That's all from me. Thank you.
From the case, the large number of senior executives involved clearly suggests that FIFA faced a systemic organizational cultural problem, rather than isolate individual misconduct. First, corruption was not limited to 1 or 2 individuals. Instead, many senior executives were implicated, and the case states that corruption allegations date back over 24 years. This long time span across different leadership terms showed that unethical behavior was embedded within the organization. Second, repeated allegations did not lead to early or effective consequence because senior leaders were able to remain in their position despite ongoing concerns. Unethical behavior gradually became normalized. In other words, misconduct was no longer seen as an exceptional but as part of how organization operated. Finally, the handling of Garcia reports highlights weak ethics, accountability, and transparency. FIFA refused to publish the full report, released only a short summary, and as a result damaged its credibility. Together, these factors indicate a culture when ethics standards were weak and the senior leaders were insufficiently held accountable. Based on the 8 trust building suggestion list on the slide, FIFA should have focused primarily on openness, honesty, and integrity. First, openness was clearly lacking. Although an independent investigation was conducted, FIFA refused to publish the full Garcia report. Only a short summary was released,
and key information was withheld from stakeholders. This lack of openness prevented transparency and undermined public trust. Second, honesty was compromised. Garcia later claimed that the published summary misrepresented the facts. By presenting information in a way that reduced the perceived level of wrongdoing, FIFA failed to communicate honestly with its stakeholders. Third, integrity was also violated. The long-term involvement of senior executives in corruption, combined with the selective release of information, shows that ethic standards were not upheld at the leadership level. In conclusion, by failing to demonstrate openness, honesty, and integrity, three core elements of the 8 trust-building suggestions, FIFA significantly damaged its ability to rebuild trust after the scandal.
Now, let's get into question 12-13. When we analyze the case, it is clear that Blatter's style was fundamentally authoritarian. His primary focus was on maintaining absolute control and power rather than fostering a culture of trust or accountability. We can break this down into 3 key areas. First, his focus on power. Blatter served as FIFA president for 17 years. Even amidst mounting pressure, he sought a 5th term, which clearly indicates a leader more interested in retaining his position than the renewal of the organization. Second, a lack of accountability. Despite a constant stream of allegations and scandals, he remained in power until he was forced to resign. This suggests he had built a culture where he has insulated from scrutiny. Finally, the erosion of trust. Ultimately, his actions lead to what we call an erosion of trust. This is the hallmark of a leadership style that prioritizes self-interest and control over ethical behavior and transparency. Question 12-14. In 2015, as FIFA faced a massive crisis during his re-election, Blatter himself described the situation as a crisis of trust. To understand what this actually means in a leadership context, we need to look at the 5 dimensions of trust, which are integrity, competence, consistency, loyalty, and openness. In the next slide, I will define these 5 dimensions and explain how they specifically apply or fail to apply to the situation at FIFA. Let's look at how these 5 dimensions were compromised. Integrity. Integrity is about being truthful and having strong morals. In this case, leaders were caught taking secret bribes, which is the literal opposite of being honest. Competence. This refers to being good at a job and making smart decisions. The leadership's competence were undermined because they used their power to enrich themselves rather than helping the organization succeed. Consistency. This is about being reliable and predictable in a positive way. However, FIFA showed a pattern of recurring scandals and a consistent failure to punish bad behavior. Loyalty. Trust requires protecting the interests of the organization. Instead, leaders showed loyalty only to money, neglecting the sport and the FIFA organization itself. The last is openness. Trust requires transparency and the sharing of information. FIFA failed here by attempting to hide important investigation reports, proving they were not committed to being transparent. In summary, the crisis of trust wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a total breakdown of these 5 essential pillars, which are integrity, competence, consistency, loyalty, and openness.
Now next to question 12-15. For Infantino to succeed, what style of leadership do you think would be most effective? First, transformational leadership is essential for Infantino because FIFA's problems are deeply rooted in its organizational culture. He must lead major reforms that challenge long-standing practices linked to corruption and misuse of power. By focusing on a long-term vision rather than short-term image repair, Infantino can rebuild FIFA's global reputation and restore confidence among fans, players, and member associations. Secondly, ethical leadership plays a crucial role in addressing FIFA's credibility crisis. Infantino must demonstrate strong integrity and moral standards through his actions, not just his words. By enforcing zero tolerance for corruption and misconduct, he can send a clear message that unethical behavior will no longer be protected. Ensuring fair and honest decision-making helps establish a culture of trust and fairness throughout the organization. Transparent leadership is another key requirement for success. In the past, FIFA damaged trust by limiting access to investigation findings and withholding information. Infantino should promote openness in investigations and reporting by publishing full reports instead of selective summaries. Clear and honest communication with stakeholders, including national associations, clubs and players, and the club public, will help rebuilding legitimacy. Finally, accountability-focused leadership strengthens all other leadership efforts. Infantino must improve six and oversight mechanism to prevent future misconduct, holding executive and officials responsible for their actions, ensure that rules are enforced consistently regardless of rank or influence. This approach demonstrates that FIFA is committed to real reform rather than symbolic change. Overall, by combining transformational, ethical, transparent, and accountability-focused leadership, Infantino can address FIFA's past failures and guide the organizations towards long-term stability and trust.
Let's move on to case study 2, which is developing Gen Y leaders with the topic of serving up leaders. Below are the 10 short summaries of these case studies. Firstly, rumors say that Manchester United has a strict and aggressive expectations towards its football players and captains. There were tales of manager having a hairdryer treatment to his player by shouting at them aggressively in the dressing room. Not only that, captain that openly criticizes his teammates will get the punishment as well. Apart from that, effective management. As managers of Manchester United FC, Alex Ferguson has led his team effectively. He has led his team for 26 years. This is a huge success that indicates his spectacular managing skills. After all, having a loudest voice and ferocity will not ensure victory in management. Third point, Ferguson instilled a strong work ethic of being the first into office and last to leave. With his effective managing style, he introduced this diligent working value which enables the player to be committed in training while ensuring the improvement of overall performance. Furthermore, Ferguson mandated dress code with Manchester United logos to enhance the players' belonging. He forced each of the players to dress as Manchester United by wearing blazers with club badge while representing the club. This reminds the player that they are a part of the club, and thus they will be more committed when performing as a team in order to achieve the success. Next, reshaping culture. Ferguson reshaped his club culture to achieve victory. He completed a big task by reshaping the club's overall working style, which served as an important step in attaining a success of his club in long run. Besides, Ferguson knew each player to their own in order to get their best performance. He believes that
A better and deeper understanding of each player facilitates a more conscious and precise decision. Not only that, Ferguson tailored different players with respective managing style. For example, he would shout at certain players while act differently to others. This is due to the fact that there's no perfect managing style that suits for all players with different personalities, different weaknesses and strengths. Hence, customization of managing style based on players' personalities allows managers to manage effectively. Apart from that, Ferguson fostered discipline and positive working relationship amongst players. When it's necessary, he will never hesitate to implement a suitable working wipe within its club to ensure that each player may perform at their best without any unessential pressure, such as relationships conflict among players that may affect their performance and development. Moving on, Ferguson took time to communicate with his team and staffs. As manager, he spent time to interact with his staffs as well as players. This will not only allow him to build a positive relationships and connection with players, but also help him to develop a more strategically plan after collecting those useful response from them directly. Last but not least, Ferguson understood the significance of details by knowing the name of his teams and staffs. Although it was hard to remember each player's and staff's name, Ferguson did memorize them because he believes that attention to details is a vital element to build success in long term.
Today, I want to talk about what leadership theories are shown by Sir Alex Ferguson. First, he shows transformational leadership. He focused on long-term success, not just winning one match. He built a strong club culture and clear values at Manchester United. He encouraged players to feel proud of the team and stay loyal to the club. This helped players go beyond their own interests and work for the team. Second, Ferguson also showed situational leadership. He didn't use the same style with every player. When players needed discipline, he was strict. When players needed support, he was understanding. He changed his leadership style based on the situation and the person. In addition, he showed servant leadership. He respected everyone in the club, not only the star players. He cared about his players and staff and wanted them to grow. By supporting others and putting the team first, he built trust and unity. Overall, Ferguson's leadership was flexible and effective. He knew when to be strong, when to support others, and when to serve the team. This is why he was able to lead Manchester United successfully for many years. In this case, several important leadership traits are shown. First, emotional intelligence. Ferguson understood his players' emotions and motivations. He managed conflicts well and built strong relationships with his team. This helped players perform better and feel respected. Second, he showed strong discipline and decisiveness. He set clear rules and expected everyone to follow them. When discipline was needed, he took action quickly. This created order and professionalism in the team. Third, he showed vision and long-term thinking. He focused on building the club's future, not just winning short-term matches. He cared about the club's culture, loyalty, and identity. Finally, he showed humility and attention to detail. He respected everyone in the club, not only star players. He paid attention to small details that helped build trust and unity. Overall, these traits helped Ferguson become a very successful and respected leader.
Hi, my name is Bu Yujie and my matrix number is 242244144. And I'll explain question 18. To what degree has emotional intelligence played a part in Alex Ferguson's success? Emotional intelligence is shown in Ferguson on how he has self-awareness, empathy, and social skills. Without this, he would not be such a respected leader and so confident with his ideas and expectations. He might not have the best social skills for the journalist and does have an autocratic style, but he is not afraid of saying what needs to be done and what can be done to contribute to his vision. Emotional intelligence allows him to tailor his approach to every player, knowing when to reward and when to reprimand. First and foremost, Ferguson's ability in managing and controlling his own emotions contributes to his self-awareness and self-regulation. The provided text notes his infamous hairdryer treatment and aggressive approach, but also mentions he was actually a manager who really knew his players and made conscious choices. This indicates he was deliberately using anger as a tool to tackle with different players based on the situation or when necessary, rather than being constantly driven by uncontrolled rage. The text also notes he would deal with the issue immediately and move on, illustrating self-regulation and a focus on resolution. It helped Ferguson to manage stress, respond to conflicts, and make decisions that can help to achieve his vision and success. Furthermore, his understanding towards others' emotions shows his empathy and social awareness, as he knew exactly how his players were and understood how to get the best out of each one. He analyzed and learned how to motivate and communicate with each of the players. By understanding each player's emotional state and personality, he could use the most effective language and motivational techniques for that individual. This prevented misunderstandings and ensured his message resonated deeply. This allowed him to tailor his leadership and coaching approach, ultimately leading to improved team performance and harmony. Last but not least, Ferguson's capability in relationship management improved his social skills. He used the hairdryer treatment as a tool for positive working relationships. This clearly indicates his ultimate goal was team cohesion and performance, but not just aggressive approach. He learned the names of all the support staff, which built loyalty and trust, with a sense that everyone was a part of the organization bigger than the team. This powerful demonstration of managing relationships across the entire organization allowed him to foster strong relationships with his players, which keeps his team motivated and committed, all contributing to the long-term success of Manchester United. Alex Ferguson has gotten to where he is by having many characteristics, but especially having such stable emotional intelligence. That's all from me. Next, I'll be explaining question 19. What do you see as the possible problems of varying the leadership approach with different players? While varying the leadership approach, which often called situational leadership, is generally effective, it can lead to several problems due to the fact that if one player receives a harsh public reprimand, which the hairdryer treatment, while another player receives a quiet private chat for a similar mistake, some might argue that the manager is doing favored and might disagree with how they are all treated equally. In extended cases, this might create a tense and negative environment for the players and company. Besides, it might increase managerial workload, as tailoring a different approach to each one player requires deep knowledge of every individual's personality, motivation, and history. This is time-consuming and requires high emotional intelligence on the part of the leader. A failure to accurately assess a player could lead to the wrong approach being taken, potentially damaging the relationship and performance. In addition, it might lead to inconsistency and unpredictability, as players may find it difficult to predict the leader's reaction. If the rules or expectations seem to shift based on who made the error, the standard for performance becomes unclear. This lack of consistency can lead to anxiety or confusion among the team, making it harder for them to maintain the desired standards of discipline and effort. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention.